Hey, welcome back, Formidable Fabrications. So today we're going to do something a little different. So I'm going to make a quick little video for everybody. When you have a situation like this, where you have a big gap between the two pieces of metal that you're welding, there's different ways that you can attack that. So for me, this wasn't big enough where I would put a piece of steel in there to make up the difference. So instead, I use a little trick. So what I like to use is a piece of aluminum. So this is one of those cheap squares that you can get from Harbor Freight. It's just made of aluminum, and if you can see, I've used it a lot. So I'm going to take this piece of aluminum and I'm going to put it under the gap that I'm trying to weld shut. And metal does not stick to aluminum even though it's hot. So what will happen is when I go to weld this gap, all the welding I'm doing will stay on top of this. So what would happen normally is you would weld this gap and it might actually burn through the metal and actually drip down below. Then you'd actually come out with a bigger gap, and that's what we want to avoid. So we need something underneath it to almost kind of hold the weld so it doesn't drip through. So that's where the aluminum comes into play. So I'm going to do right now, I'm going to put this under here, and then I'm going to weld up that gap, and then you can actually see how much easier it is when you have a piece of aluminum underneath. So, and to do this properly, you want to take your settings. You want to go at a medium heat, not too high, not too low, but you want to go at a little bit higher wire speed. So what that's going to do is the higher wire speed is actually going to fill the gap in easier. So if you use the settings you would normally use, say I'm running at 17 volts. If you use 17 volts at a normal, say 200 inch per minute, it would be the same as if you were welding. That's what you would use if you were welding something that didn't have a gap, say like a joint, like a butt joint like this, or a fillet joint like that. But since this is so big, we need extra filler to fill that in. So we're going to turn our wire speed up a little bit to help fill in that gap easier. So you can see the metal under there, you see the aluminum. I'm going to put that in there, and then we're going to weld it. Oh, it just fell. So anyway, you can see I've created a nice weld bead there. All the bead a little bit dirty, but I can continue with that all the way down without having to worry about the underside of it blowing through. Now, for the sake of showing you guys, I really don't want to, but I will show you what will happen if you don't have something underneath. Move the camera back a little bit. Took it a second. You can see right there how it actually blew through that metal. So if I were to keep going, that hole would have gotten bigger and bigger, and then I would have had to spend a lot of time trying to fill in that little hole that I just made. When in reality, if you put the piece of aluminum down there, you won't get a hole like that because all the weld is staying up here. So just a little trick that I use when I get myself in a situation where I make a bad cut, such as this. I measured this a 1/4 inch too short, and now I'm stuck with a 1/4 inch gap that I have to deal with. So, but that's all for today. Just some little helpful tips to help your welding get a little bit better. Catch you on the next one.